Palestine is deciding only using the word genocide counts as opposition. You just want to be mad and not know what I think. I've talked about Gaza on my show every week since 10/7. We've been scathing about Biden and Trump. Here's one tiny example. With a platform, and now this is something that you care about and you're upset about, what I think shouldn't fucking matter to you at all. France has said that he's formally going to be recognizing the state of Palestine. To people confused by that, being like, wait, what? Don't you already recognize the state of Palestine? The answer is no. There's not a lot of countries that don't recognize the state of Palestine formally. We are amongst them, Canada. There are other nations, mostly G7 nations. You can probably read into that as you will as to why pressure has been applied for a long time to not formally recognize that state, because then you would, of course, have to, I don't know, maybe conduct yourself differently in terms of the way that you continuously arm the nation that is destroying the other one. So when people tell you they want a two-state solution, they don't tell you the second part to that, which is they don't actually recognize one of those two states. So Emmanuel Macron, seeing how horrifying this genocide and mass starvation is, finally reaching the eyes of the world. And of course, once it does, the public outrage and disgust is quite palpable, causing world leaders to finally be like, oh shit, we can't ignore this anymore. As much as Carney is trying, Mark Carney is such a fucking coward on this issue. It's like, it's deeply, deeply embarrassing. But he usually takes our foreign minister, Anita Anand, and puts her in the front to have to do things about it. So it's time for some word salad, because she spoke at the UN to talk about a peaceful settlement.
Painful realities that continue to tear at the fabric of the region. Escalating violence, devastating civilian casualties, hostages still in captivity, a deepening humanitarian crisis in Gaza, relentless settlement expansion in the West Bank, and the continued threat of terrorism. All of this making the prospects for peace feel more distant. Canada believes a two-state solution remains the only viable path to lasting peace for both Palestinians and Israelis.
Interesting you would say that. So the formal statements made by most world leaders, by the way, that this includes Germany, the UK, Keir Starmer. Don't get me started on fucking Sir Keir Starmer, who's like, oh my, it seems quite horrifying, the things that are taking place there. This mass starvation has to end. And then it's like, you're the one who said that Israel has a right to do a mass starvation. Sorry, no one does. Just so we're clear, no one has that right. That's not just one of the rules of conduct that you're allowed to just suddenly be like, yeah, we're going to cut off all food to a civilian population. And to everyone now who's just like, the Matthew Iglesiases of the world who are like, we have to accept that as more information comes out, people's minds can be changed and leave the door open for that. Yeah, to the motherfuckers who sit at home watching news, of course, yeah, if the amount of stuff that they ingest on a regular basis, suddenly those news sources are changing the way that they report on this, or finally mainstream media is actually going to report on this honestly, then yes, that just makes sense to the majority of people who have had their consent manufactured by that same mainstream media. That is a condemnation of the mainstream media. That is a condemnation of the cowardice of all of these outlets who for so long have simply tried to either normalize this genocide by calling it a war, or run cover for it by just story after story after story. Did you know that Hamas is evil? Did you know that these hospitals are Hamas headquarters? Did you know that this school is Hamas headquarters? Did you know this orphanage is Hamas headquarters? For those people, sure. For you, Matthew Iglesias, and everyone else who's trying to be like, well, I'm actually against this now. Yes, I heard that there was a saying at one point, everybody will pretend like they were always against this. Now it's my turn. I'm against this. I choose to be against this now. Genocide bad, actually. Okay, great. I'll look at all the heroes. Here's the thing, though. Yoav Gallant said on October 9th of 2023, 2 years ago, all right, that we are dealing with human animals. We are cutting off all food, all water, all medical supplies, all fuel. This is not new information. That was October 9th, 2023. That was clearly a formal policy being done by Israel. And immediately after that, what was every headline in every fucking major newspaper? Israel at war. Israel at war. Look at this. The war has begun. Israel is now at war. And even now, when we are seeing again a daily dose of actual child skeletons from children who have starved to death, who have been forced to die in the fucking most like extended and painful way possible. Now people are like, oh, so this is what genocide actually looks like. Yeah, it's gross. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. But even then, we're still releasing formal statements, and I'm putting Anita Anand on blast here, where the middle statement has to include, we also condemn Hamas, and we also call for return of the hostages. We also call for their immediate release. That's granted they're alive, haven't starved to death, haven't been bombed by Israel. Lot of factors there. Why are you bringing that up in the middle of a genocide? It's unfathomably cruel. I've seen so many just fucking horrifying takes. Ro Khanna, of all people, doing a poll. He ran a poll on his Twitter account. Who do you think is responsible for the mass starvation in Gaza? Is it Benjamin Netanyahu? Is it Hamas? What the fuck? What? I'm sorry. What the fuck? What in your comms team made this appropriate? First, like, I don't give a fuck what your Twitter followers believe. You have a responsibility to tell the truth. That's on you. That, like, it's unbelievable.
At the plenary session this afternoon, I will have more to say about Canada's position. We are here today because this moment demands political courage and resolve. And we must stand together and choose a different path, one that leads toward a sustainable and a just solution. And political agreements alone are not enough. We must also address the narratives shaping identity, perception, and legitimacy, as these lie at the heart of the conflict. As G7 president, Canada is engaging closely with regional partners, and the message is clear. The region must be defined by peace, by stability, and by dignity for all. Guided by this understanding, Canada, alongside Qatar and Mexico, is co-leading this Narrative for Peace working group.
Nonsense, all of it. It's just word salad gibberish without any effective, like, you know, actual policies or holding anyone to account. It's been so ghastly to see the amount of, like, strongly worded letters after strongly worded letters. This is the Ghoul Awards, right? Because even Emmanuel Macron is a monster who should be remembered as one in perpetuity in history, but he's being slightly better than the UK and Canada, who are like, oh, no, I don't want any pressure from the US right now, you know? Even though I know Mark Carney did say that elbows up, we're running on an anti-Trump platform, we're going to be fighting up against that Trump guy. Yeah, and then I came into power and basically have been doing everything in my power to collaborate with Trump and his fascistic agenda. That's been Mark Carney. But yeah, don't do that. This isn't, by the way, even the bare minimum. This is not, we're going to stop selling all weapons to Israel. We are going to impose sanctions on Israel in totality, not just on a couple of extremist settlers in the West Bank, like all of Israel. It's none of that. It's like we're going to formally recognize the state of Palestine, which most people in these countries didn't even know was a thing. Like, I know a lot of people are like, well, we recognize Palestine, don't we? And it was like, no, we don't. Not formally. We don't have a diplomatic channel directly. We occasionally speak to representatives in the West Bank. We don't speak to representatives in Gaza because Hamas is considered a terrorist organization. But we do occasionally speak to representatives in the West Bank. But that's different than actually recognizing them formally as a state and having a diplomatic channel with them in the way that we do every other nation in the world. So that's actually a thing. French President Emmanuel Macron's announcement that France would become the first Western member of the United Nations Security Council to recognize a Palestinian state in September has caused diplomatic ructions from the Middle East through Europe to Washington. But it did not come out of the blue. When Macron visited the Egyptian town of El Arish at the border with Gaza in April, he was struck by the mounting humanitarian crisis and made it clear on his return home that Paris would soon opt for recognition. Working with Saudi Arabia, Macron came up with a plan to have France plus G7 allies, Britain and Canada, recognize the Palestinian statehood while pushing for Arab states to adopt a softer stance towards Israel through a United Nations conference. But despite weeks of talks, he failed to get others on board. 3 diplomats said London did not want to face the wrath of the United States, and Ottawa took a similar stance, leaving Macron to go at it alone. It became increasingly apparent that we could not wait for partners to get on board. I think at this point, I hope more people are just recognizing what, like, you know, little vassal states we are of the U.S. empire. and have been for so fucking long. It's just like, it's sad, but it's just the reality. As much as you want to run a campaign like Mark Carney did on this whole like, well, our relationship with the U.S. is changed and it's forever going to be we have to separate ourselves and all this kind of stuff. It's like, it's just bill after bill, incredibly draconian border bills, incredibly intense funding of a surveillance state apparatus in Canada, which is now coming forward with another horrifying bill that Carney's pushing through, all to please Donald Trump, while Donald Trump pisses on your face just every other week. It's like, hey, you did the thing I said I wanted you to do. Yep. Well, you get 20% tariffs. Why? Because I want to. So enjoy that. And it's like, well, we really need to now diversify and do more trade with other nations. We're building a stronger Canada, a better tomorrow. No, we're not. Like, we're still so dependent on the United States in every single way, which is kind of fucked up, because when the United States goes full fasci, the Keir Starmer can be with Donald Trump and agree with him. Oh yeah, apparently he is solving these problems. I'm being upset about this. Have you seen Sir Keir Starmer now? Have you seen the statements he's making? Oh, this simply has to stop. It's unbearable to witness what we are seeing every single day. Small little children dying from starvation. And why? Probably from all the bullets and guns that you give the people who are starving the kids, Sir Keir Starmer. Why are you all sociopaths? Every single one of you. You're sociopaths, and you're not living in an age where you can even get away with this whole kind of like, oh no, I was always against this. It was just ghastly stuff. Nah, there's clips of you saying that they have a right to do this. And then there's documentation of you arming them while they do this. You sociopaths can't keep just standing on front of your podiums and being like, I am now upset at the thing that I made happened. And now that the thing is happening, I'm upset. I wish it wasn't happening. I will continue to do the things that make it happen. That's true. But I get to be upset about it at the same time. And I want some snaps. Can you give me some snaps? Because I'm saying it's bad. I mean...
A very long career. What was your professional opinion of what was happening?
My professional opinion of how the sites were established was what I would describe as amateur. Inexperienced, untrained, no idea of how to conduct operations of this magnitude. That would be my most benign assessment. In my most frank assessment, I would say that they're criminal. In my entire career, have I never witnessed the level of brutality and use of indiscriminate and unnecessary force against a civilian population, an unarmed, starving population.
Let that set in. This is a Green Beret who is working for a private defense contractor for the fucking U.S. military, saying that out loud. Never in my life have I witnessed anything like this being done on a civilian population. Like, by the way, I just want to add, not a single person is taking any joy in being correct about this for the past 2 years. There's no like, I fucking told you so. Oh, the left is always... No, just people who had the actual, I don't know, honesty to listen to the people on the ground there, the brave ass journalists, the ones who are all like mostly dead now, in Palestine, the Palestinian journalists who have been reporting on this consistently for a long time, saying, this is what's happening, help. This is what's happening, help. And for 2 years, you've had to push up against every fucking mainstream media outlet, every debate bro or pod bro who along the way wants to tell you, fucking, it's not what you think it is. Okay, there was a Hamas headquarters under the hospital. I don't think that it's totally fair to say that it's a war crime to bomb an orphanage, because at the end of the day, that orphanage could have been holding weapons for Hamas. They have to actually restrict some of the food that comes in there, because you never know what that food is going to be used for, if they smuggle weapons inside of the food. Yeah, I know I'm speaking about like, feeding and UN programs, but I am saying that there could be a problem where maybe some of the sugar is used for missiles or whatever it is. But whatever the case may be, we need to talk about that rather than actually, bring attention to the fact that there's an act of genocide taking place. You can't call it a genocide. Don't forget that. You can't, hey, you could devalue that term, all right? Don't water that term down. Come on, that term, it has a lot of importance. And so don't just throw it out there. You know, don't just call things you don't like a genocide. This is a war. It was a war and always is a war. And this is a war between, again, Hamas, the ultimate evil in the world, and Israel, the one true democracy in the Middle East. So let's not use the term genocide, all right? And it doesn't matter if there are hundreds of scholars who study this topic, if there are people who specifically study the Holocaust, for example, and they're writing about how this is a genocide, or even Holocaust survivors who are saying this is a genocide, or all these human rights organizations are now the totality of human rights organizations that are coming forward. Oh, we have a new one. How about an Israeli human rights organization that is saying that this is our genocide? Our genocide. I'm talking about B'Tselem, who came forward today to make a statement on this, claiming that, yes, this is in fact a genocide. Two major Israeli human rights groups, B'Tselem and Physicians for Human Rights in Israel, have declared that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. B'Tselem says Israel is taking, quote, deliberate, coordinated action to destroy the Palestinians, pointing to mass displacement, starvation, systemic razing of civilian infrastructure. This is the exact definition of genocide. The PHRI describes the assault as a systematic dismantling of Gaza's healthcare system, rendering survival impossible. The report details bombings of 33 or 36 hospitals, killing of the detention of over 1,800 medical staff, famine conditions reaching 92% of infants. This is not collateral damage. It is the denial of survivability. But B'Tselem also warns that the same genocidal policies are expanding to the West Bank and urges the international community to end its complicity. This is coming from inside the house. This is coming from Israel. This is an Israeli human rights organization saying, hey, the rest of the world, stop supporting us. Stop supporting us. We are doing a genocide, and we are now going to do a genocide on the West Bank unless you do something about it. And doing something about it is not simply writing a strongly worded letter, feigning outrage, even recognizing the state of Palestine. That's not enough. None of this is enough. You need to cut off all weapon shipments to Israel. You need to stop the murder machine. That's it. And recognize it for what it is. And I know that for some people, that is turning their entire world upside down. That's why a lot of people have been pointing towards that this is actually lies at the core of a lot of the entire world's understanding of imperialism, neoliberalism, of the benevolence of the West. We're not benevolent. We are mass murdering psychopaths. That's the reality. The so-called neoliberal world order is grotesque, is monstrous, and this is the reality. And I know for some people, recognizing that, yes, does suddenly change the way they have to see the world, flips a lot of this shit on its head, and all of a sudden it's like, Jesus Christ, I have to question so many things. I get that there's probably going to be a lot of unpacking to do, but here you are. And now that you're here, there's a lot of work to do.
From the United States. If you are seeing this video, we have been intercepted at sea and have been kidnapped by the Israeli occupation forces or forces of the country complicit in Israel's genocide of the Palestinians. I appeal to my comrades, friends, family, to everyone to put pressure on the U.S. government to demand my release and the release of my comrades as soon as possible. Thank you.
Make noise. Get them freed. Is that tweeting welcome to the tent does nothing either. It's too late for the kids who are being starved to death. If anyone can help them now, it's not suddenly repentant liberals. On the other hand, accountability for such opportunists is a live possibility. So there's obviously going to be a lot of individuals now seeing that the images are coming out similar to, people keep pointing towards and making comparisons to World War II. Obviously, you shouldn't be comparing as if they are one-to-one going to be identical. You know, the genocide of Jewish people, of Slavic people, of gays, of people with disabilities that the Nazi Germany did to what is taking place to the genocide of Palestinians. But one thing that people should note historically is that a lot of the worst aspects of the Holocaust, including the death camps themselves, the imagery of that and what they had effectively done to these populations of people, that imagery came out after the war had ended, or at least a lot of it started coming out after the war had ended. And a lot of the revelations of how bad those death camps were actually took place and were revealed to the eyes of the world during the Nuremberg trials, which is why the Nuremberg trials are so very important. And of course, at that point, it's when the entire world starts to recognize how the scale, the sheer industrial scale and evil that was taking place by Nazi Germany and the Nazis and the fascists, and how this is something that should never happen again. Like never again is a statement to be made for everybody, and so that humanity should never repeat these kind of things. There's a lot of people along the pathway that tried to normalize what was taking place or tried to downplay what was taking place, as you have witnessed for the past 2 years, what's been taking place in terms of the way people have reported on this. I want to emphasize for the Matthew Iglesiases of the world who are now coming forward and being like, hey, we need to understand that it's okay to know when to admit that new information has come forward and our minds have been changed. And you know, I don't know what starving baby photo did it for you. I don't know what death count did it for you. I don't know at what point you were like, oh, okay, so yeah, this is bad. It doesn't really look like a war. October 9th, 2023, that is when Yoav Gallant made the statement that we are fighting human animals and we are cutting off all food, water, fuel, medical supplies. Again, a declaration of intent was made October 9th, 2023. This is 2 years ago. This is not new information. This has been 2 years of active genocide, and this has been playing out in front of the eyes of the world for everyone to see. You can do the whole, you know, cover your ears, cover your eyes, I see nothing, I hear nothing kind of shit, but it was always there. And it was there either for you to want to ignore, to downplay, and in many ways participate in the propaganda that was necessary to pacify the majority of the world, especially the majority of the West. Because once people find out about this, or once they truly know the grotesquerie or the scale of it, of course they're going to be outraged. Of course they're going to be fucking furious, as they should be. Because when you see, again, hundreds of thousands of people being starved to death, when you see the actual bodies of the child skeletons and the mothers who are holding them who look equally as malnourished, yeah, part of your heart turns on. And you're like, oh shit, no, this is bad. Yeah, it's really fucking bad. But you know what's bad? The fact that we ignored it for so long. Because even if you just wanted to say, oh, I don't really use social media, I didn't really see the videos, oh, I don't watch TikTok, I didn't see all the compilations that people were putting together, I don't go on Reddit, I didn't see the links. Okay, even in mainstream media, the cracks were bursting constantly for a few brave moments when Channel 4 would have on someone from the UN or someone from Doctors Without Borders. I think it was a year and a half ago when CBC had on a person who had returned from there who brought the reporter who was interviewing him to tears. They both started crying because he was describing how bad it was. And when he was saying it out loud, the other person was like, I'm going to do that rare moment where I cannot maintain my journalistic professionalism, because just hearing it like firsthand was enough for her to just like fucking break. So yeah, you've had Doctors Without Borders for the mass starvation. That part, I mean, you have had experts on nutrition, on famine, who have come forward and explain what the stages of famine are, explain why when we were in stage 4, why that everyone was sounding the alarm, why all these human rights, every single fucking human rights organization that has credibility was sounding the alarm. We call for the immediate international fucking obligation, the duty-bound obligation for you to do something about this. Please, for the love of fuck, do something about this, because if they get to stage 5, that's where their organs start to collapse. That's where their bodies start to fucking fall apart. There is no stage 6. And the fact that you are just letting this happen while we're warning you, this is happening. They have gone months now with not new fucking food supplies. They are eating sewage. They are eating sand. They are eating dirt. They are eating garbage. Like, at what point are you going to do something about this? Because we all make this possible. So now the Pod Save America guys responded to this statement with, I just couldn't disagree more. The coalition to end this nightmare has to be big enough to include the anti-interventionist right and a liberal Zionist who decided today that it has to end. No one wants to be part of a movement where self-righteous people scolds them upon entry. So of all the shit that is happening right now that you could use your massive ass platform to bring attention to, you want to talk about the woke scolds, the purity testing. Oh, I don't want to see people going online and bringing up people's old statements and using them against them. I don't want to see that. Like, I think what is happening is really bad. It's a nightmare. Yeah, I'll use the term nightmare. And what's important right now is effectively that people understand that the real victims are the multimillionaire podcasters who are not given free reign to be able to talk about this freely without feeling guilt. I don't want to feel guilt about it. I don't want to feel shame. I'd rather you were nice to me or anyone else. So yeah, don't get me wrong. For the majority of a population, say in Canada or the United States, who have been consuming mainstream media as their primary source for news, for them, the onus falls on the mainstream media. And honestly, yes, there should be, ideally, at some point, some trials to find out who is complicit, who actively worked to normalize and propagandize a genocide, and who has been doing that. And hey, we got new media now, so that can include TikTokers and debate perverts and live streamers who have been spending all of their time and their effort right now regularly going on their live streams to downplay the severity of what is happening, or to go after Hassanabi because they hate Hassanabi, and this has to be about me and my battles with Hassanabi. That's what I really care about. Yeah, some stuff is happening in the background, but we really should talk about how Hassanabi has upset me, or some other shit like that. Or people who have been, hey, can we debate about whether or not that missile hit the hospital? Was that Hamas? But was it Hamas that bombed the hospital? I know it was a parking lot outside of the hospital, but that's important. So Joe is saying right now that apparently he has seen the images of the beheaded babies. That's the president of the United States. It must be true. So we have to understand that this is something people should be honest about. You know, the whole beheaded babies thing. That's pretty important, right? So I'll admit now, it is true that Israel did bomb a hospital. That is true, and they have effectively targeted a hospital. But did you know that underneath is a command control center? I don't know if you saw the images, the ones right beside an MRI machine, which are obviously kind of strange to see because they're supposed to be perpetually on, and there's all these guns placed around it, which is also kind of weird. It looks like it was staged, like a staging, but don't think about that too much. So this is the Hamas Command and Control Center. Did you see the calendar that the IDF pointed out? That calendar shows like a whole bunch of really terrible things, I think, evil stuff. Mein Kampf. They have Mein Kampf books. So that's what Hamas does. They read Mein Kampf all day, and then they just talk about genociding the Jews, and that's basically reality. And so yeah, we got to talk about that now. We got to talk about that. Talk about anything else. Talk about anything else except, should we ever hold Israel responsible for any of their war crimes? And even people like, I'm sorry, the fence-sitting or the center-left or the progressive fucking, pro-Zionists who on some level would be like, I agree that what Israel's doing, it's some of it are war crimes, okay? I will grant you, some of the things they're doing are war crimes. Some of them are war crimes. I don't think that this reaches the bar of genocide. I want to be really careful with how we use that term, because again, to just throw out the word genocide, it loses its meaning. It loses the severity of what it is for us to say that. Yeah. So it's important we don't do that. And the left will come forward and be like, well, at this point, there are literally hundreds of scholars who specifically studied the topic of genocide. Some of them are also Holocaust scholars. There are the majority now of human rights organizations that have come forward. There's the UN report on this. I don't really know. Oh, Vassal, an Israeli human rights organization, has now declared it to be a genocide. Are we there? Can we? Because if you want to talk about demonstrating genocidal intent, oh wow, is there ever a fuck ton of that? It was only a couple days ago. I mean, don't know if you saw this statement by an Israeli minister, which I would say falls pretty strongly into the category of genocidal intent. Minister says Israel is racing ahead to wipe out Gaza. We'll make it Jewish. This is from the Times of Israel article, if you want to find the original. And see, here's some of the quotes. Quote, all Gaza will be Jewish. Quote, there's no hunger in Gaza. Quote, we don't need to be concerned with hunger in the Strip. Let the world worry about it. Quote, the government is racing ahead for Gaza to be wiped out. This was last week, by the way. And then at that point, it's like, okay, are we? Can we call it a genocide now? Does that count as genocidal intent? Any of it? And so, to people who have been consuming mainstream media, who are now coming forward and saying, I'm against this, obviously, good. Good. Start doing stuff. Start getting active. Start getting your countries to separate in totality from Israel. Do not do business with Israel. Do not sell weapons to Israel. Do not buy weapons from Israel. Don't associate with them at all. They are a genocidal regime that is mass murdering children. Why you would want to be associated with that at all? I understand business, line go up, all that kind of stuff, right? Yes, of course, deep ties, all of this. But no, that is something that if there's not a will of the general population and an outright revulsion and disgust at this that translates into action, then it's pointless. Then like, so yes, you're really sad that you saw a couple child skeletons. Start doing something about it. If you're a podcast bro, if you are someone who, like myself, is a spoiled fucking piggy in the West who for a living talks into a microphone, then fucking do something with that microphone. Use it for some shit. Use the platform you have, you know? If it's a small platform, fine. But if you have a huge one, if you happen to be Pod Save fucking America, then save America from itself right now. You know, that's what you should be doing. And Tommy's been like pushing back against this, being like, purity testing is deciding only using the word genocide counts as opposition. You just want to be mad and not know what I think. I've talked about Gaza on my show every week since 10/7. We've been scathing about Biden and Trump. Here's one tiny example. What a weird thing to want to tweet. And like, obviously it took 2 seconds to find this. On September 13, 2023, had no problem using the term genocide in relation to China. Elon Musk both siding the Uyghur genocide is some dark, dark shit. Just threw that right out real fast, real quick. Didn't have to think about it too much there, right? Wasn't a debate. Wasn't, oh, it's just, if you don't say the magic words, apparently you don't accept us as these newfound allies to the movement. Hey, if you want to use your platform for some good right now, my friend, please go do it. Do it. I'm not going to stand in your way. I'm not going to stand in the way of fucking Matthew Iglesias if he's going to come forward and be like, we need to do a two-way arms embargo with Israel. Here's the thing. If you happen to be one of these people with a platform and now this is something that you care about and you're upset about, what I think shouldn't fucking matter to you at all. At all. Neither should you care about what any fucking people or jabronis on the internet have to say, or activists, or people who might be opposed to the fact that you're now trying to be like, I was always on the right side of history and I'd like everyone to know that, and I'd like awards, please, maybe some snaps, hey, check out our Patreon, whatever the case may be. You shouldn't give two fucks about what I think, because what should be important to you is now effectively trying to stop this genocide. If you recognize it, if you see that it's horrible, if you're disgusted by this, if you think it's a nightmare, then it shouldn't matter. You shouldn't be going on the internet being like, I want to bring attention to something. What's that? The purity testing and the woke scolding. That's what's important right now. We should talk about the woke scolding, and people should be nicer. Big tent. Can we talk about the tent and all this kind of stuff? You shouldn't give two fucks. You shouldn't care. You shouldn't care if someone's mean to you. If I post something online and I'm like, hey, by the way, free Palestine, which I have been doing for a very, very long time. If I do that, guess what? My replies will fill with people saying horrifying things to me. Being like, you're a terror supporter. You're a fucking, oh, I didn't know you support the mass murder of Israeli children. You're an anti-Semite. You hate the Jews. All those kind of things, which I do not. I do not in my heart hate Jewish people. I love all people. This is one of those things where they've been trying to weaponize this for so long and use this as a defense to run cover for genocide. But I'm still going to keep advocating for a free Palestine, regardless of the fact that I get shitty ass comments in my replies, people who are mad, people who make videos about me, people who do podcasts about me, people who talk shit about me. That doesn't fucking matter in terms of my advocacy. And that should apply the exact same to the podcast bros who are now like, oh shit, we're against this. Good. Then use your power, sirs. Go forth. Do everything you can right now to bring attention to this, to get the U.S. to cut off all relationships with Israel. I know that's a lofty task, probably one you don't agree with, but that's probably where you should be aiming right now. Your advocacy, your time, your platform, instead of being like, how does this affect the election? We got to talk about this and talk about the midterms. We got to talk about this and talk about if this is actually bad because of the morality of it, Or is it bad because it creates more Hamas? And if you think I'm just making shit up right now, by the way, that was actually one of the things that, you know, Tommy did in the clip that he sent to me to like prove.
But then strategically, even the Israeli military intelligence services do not believe that you can defeat Hamas entirely. They will exist as a terrorist organization, as a guerrilla organization. They're not going to go away. You can diminish their capabilities and reduce the threat, but you cannot kill off the organization or kill an idea or a resistance to occupation. So they're not going anywhere. And I worry that a generation of young people are being radicalized, and that radicalization is not just going to be pointed at the Israeli government. It's going to be pointed directly at us. And you're seeing this thing metastasize into the Middle East. You're seeing the Israelis bombing Iranian generals in a diplomatic facility in Damascus. Now we're all waiting to see what the Iranian response is and whether they're going to fucking attack Israel directly or attack some U.S. interests in the region. Like, nothing about this is making anyone safer. It is all just getting worse.
Now, I agree, obviously, with the general sentiment that, yes, absolutely, it is not making anyone safer. It's like the grotesque reality of a genocide, especially a genocide that Christian nationalists in the United States have effectively branded as a movement to protect Jewish people, is obviously going to have detrimental effects when you cannot separate those two things, which Christian nationalists have been fighting for non-fucking stop. Grotesque-ass Zionists like Joe Biden or fucking Justin Trudeau, I'm a proud Zionist. Every Canadian should be proud to call themselves a Zionist. You're calling yourself a colonizer, a proud colonizer, and you're associating that with all Jewish people. And so for all the brave Jewish people who, by the way, have been at the front lines of a lot of the protests that I've been a part of here in Canada, who are constantly, you know, doing slogans, not in our name, if not now, when, you know, never again means everybody, that kind of shit. They've had to push up against a very, very strong Christian nationalist movement in the United States. For the majority of the Zionist movement, the majority of Zionists in America are Christian Zionists. That is the majority of the Zionist movement. The Zionist movement in America is made up of Christian Zionists more than any other category or group. And they are consistently pushing for this idea where it's like you have to associate the actions of Israel with all Jewish people. The state of Israel has to exist to be able to keep the Jewish people safe. Anything that Israel does is in self-defense to protect the Jewish people. And if you criticize it, you're by definition anti-Semitic. By doing that, it is by definition anti-Semitic. You are downplaying the reality and the severity of anti-Semitism, or even the severity of racism. You are weaponizing it, and it's being done by a group that does not give like two fucks about racism. They don't care about racism. Christian nationalists are fucking racist pieces of shit. And what a surprise that you are emboldening the worst scumfucks of the universe, actual Nazis. Nick Fuentes, for example, disgusting ass white supremacist neo-Nazis who, yes, do hate Jewish people, who, yes, do spread conspiracies about Jewish people, and yeah, are now saying I am anti-Israel because Israel has been told to me to be all Jewish people, and so if I hate Jewish people, and you've told me that Israel represents all Jewish people, I hate Israel. So that's where you get the Nick Fuenteses of the world, the Candace Owens of the world, the Yays of the world, the people who are both people who hate Jewish people, and now, because of the Christian Nationalist Association of Judaism with the actions of Israel, they associated with all of that. This whole thing is, without question, an absolute fucking disaster, but it's one now that if you are aware of it, you can work towards breaking this cycle. We shouldn't have a mayoral election in the United States where the candidates are being asked, do you support Israel's right to exist as a Jewish supremacist ethnostate? We can realize now and say out loud, what the fuck? Why would you ask that in the mayoral race for a candidate? Like, what does this have to do with Israel? What does this have to do with Israel as a nation state or Jewish supremacist ethno-state? And why do I need to respond in the affirmative? And if you don't answer in the affirmative, you're a racist. That makes no sense. That's really fucked up. We should unpack this. It's unhealthy. It's not good for anybody. Let's talk about that, right? Let's talk about these dual loyalty tropes. Let's talk about the fact that, you know, people are consistently trying to advocate for, yes, we need to associate the nation state of Israel with all Jewish people, and it has to be a Jewish state, and it has to be a Jewish supremacist state, and you have to acknowledge that, and you have to acknowledge its right to exist, all that kind of stuff. Well, if we've gotten to a point now where we're now seeing the horrifying reality of the end results of a colonial project, because it doesn't matter if it happens to be Israel, it doesn't matter if it happens to be Zionism, it could be the country of Canada and the project of Canada, which, yes, at different points in time, changed the way that it was actively doing a genocide upon Indigenous people. It started to, again, industrialize, similar to how the Nazis, actually, it's wild. The Nazis actually were inspired by some of what Canada was doing, especially with its residential school systems. But it started to industrialize the idea of trying to assimilate a culture into their own, to do first a cultural genocide after doing an active genocide towards the people, and then consistently year after year after year, trying to downplay the severity of all of this. And it's taken a lot to try and unpack that in a lot of people's brains, where if you don't teach the real history of this, or you don't actually explain what these things are, yeah, they're going to be done in perpetuity because people don't know any different. If you come into this world and then you're like, so I was born here, I didn't have a choice. I was born in Canada, and then I was raised in Canada, and I've heard that the history of Canada is a horrifying one, a bloody one. It's like, well, it's actually very recent. It's far more recent than you think. A lot of the effects of these same processes and systems are still enacted today. I mean, it was only last year that it was actually made illegal to do forced sterilization of Indigenous women. That was only last year. 2024. That wasn't in the 60s. That wasn't in the 20s. That was last year. The Canadian Senate actually had to put forth a motion to ban and outlaw the practice of forcibly sterilizing. That's eugenics, by the way. By eugenics. So that was last year. That was last year that we did you can't do officially eugenics. You officially can't do it towards Indigenous women anymore. Officially, 2024. That's. So yeah, not generations ago, not a very, very long time ago. All these things need to be talked about and unpacked. And along the way, yeah, there are people who previously in the past may have been very, very shitty on a particular issue that are going to come around. That's fair. But that's different if you just happen to be a person who is consuming the newspaper or the media. If you are the media, I'm sorry, but the bar is a lot fucking higher because you are influencing the minds of thousands of people. This is why we keep talking about the responsibility that creators have, and even more so when they happen to be independent creators, because you are really just beholden to your Patreon supporters. But ultimately, you don't have an editor. You don't have an editorial team. When you fuck up, there might be someone who comes along and sues you. But pretty much that's where it lies.
Don't let this happen to you. Go to serfscoffee.com to order the only end-to-end owned Indigenous coffee company that delivers blood-free, conflict-free, and cruelty-free beans right to your door. 0% of people who drink serfscoffee.com have exploded spontaneously. By ordering right now, you get 10% off plus free shipping, and it's the best way to enjoy delicious coffee while not exploding. That's serfscoffee.com, serfscoffee.com.
Thank you so much for watching, everyone. This video wouldn't be at all possible without the financial support of all the people whose names you see on the screen right now. And if you want to unlock secret bonus episodes, content that we can't post anywhere else, or get the videos early before anyone else gets to see them, please go on to patreon.com/theserfs. For as little as $1, you can help support this channel and help make more videos like this possible. Our executive producers are Anna Loves Riley, Adrian McCarthy, Bobby Lasers, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Garrett Sandoval, Hagbard Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Multimondi, Omni, Political Papi, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Richard Boehm, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demel, Tigwick, Trav, and Words Greenwood. And also, it wouldn't be possible without all the names you see on the screen right now. Again, if you want to help produce this content, it's only made possible through the funding of our patrons. Head on down to